Hey everybody, welcome to another Marc Harvill art painting tutorial. And what I've got going on here right now today, we're working on a 24 by 30 canvas, which I've just painted with sort of a nice aquamarine blue because we're going to be doing this deep sea sort of painting that we'll have this shipwreck and a couple other fun little things here. So what I'm doing now is I'm just really just blocking in my ship, and I'll be using a couple different colors in my palette. Really, mostly that'll be cobalt, turquoise, and teal as another color. Be using a little bit of burnt umber, and that'll help me to desaturate those colors. And a lot of this is going to be desaturated anyway. I'm going to be doing, this really dark painting, and it's going to be kind of murky water, so everything's going to be pretty dark. But I've just mixed here that cobalt teal with some of that burnt umber, and just kind of created this nice sort of tealish grayish color. So that'll be what I'm blocking in here for this ship. And of course the ship is just going to be really more of a background. It's not going to have an enormous amount of detail. Now, one thing I've really been working on is to add detail where I need it, where I really want to draw attention, but keeping other odds and ends of the painting, other aspects, just limited in my detail. And specifically when I'm working in areas in the far background, I don't need to spend an enormous amount of time. I just want to create sort of subtle suggestions of kind of what's been going on in the background, and then just allow the human brain to sort of fill in the gaps and the spaces. So the great thing about the human brain is it'll do that. So I've really been trying to be a lot more subtle in my approach to painting, and I'm always looking at what can I do to enhance my composition with contrast and with depth. And a lot of the depth is really achieved by using these cool colors in the background, making them blurry, making them just subtle hints of detail, and just keeping them pretty basic. Okay, so I'm just blocking in the little stones and cliffs that we've got here at the seabed floor. And so the far back, I'm using just a standard sort of a blue. And as I'm working to the foreground, it's just really pure black. I just want to get it really dark. And so just going to block all this in real quickly. And now just coming back and start to add just some really subtle highlights. Of course, we're going to be having the light source coming from the left, so I want some of that sunlight that's filtering in to the water to just sort of, give a bit of a silver lining to things, but still keeping it very, very basic, very small amount of detail, and just make these little subtle hints and these little suggestions. So I'll be working here on the kind of the rocks and the sand portion here now, just using that same dark teal color, and just lightening a little bit with some turquoise and white. And then I can come back and just add those little silver linings and subtle suggestions. So, and that's kind of my suggestion when painting, is look at how can you really draw the eye to focus on those areas you really want to have the focus, and how can you really just be a little more deliberate in creating subtle suggestions. And so I continue to keep trying to work on that, but I think it really will enhance your work as you learn to do that, and I think you'll be able to sort of be able to really, draw the viewer to where you want them to focus in your painting. All right, so kind of speeding ahead here now, I'm just adding those silver linings using some light turquoise by really it's just using my white, a little bit of turquoise. It's not a pure white at this time. So coming back with an airbrush, and I've just added just a very, it's almost a pale white, almost like a bluish white, but more on the white side, and just start to bring in some of the light filtering in, and some of the sun rays that I kind of want to have starting to come through. And I just wanted to do this with my airbrush. It can be achieved in other ways, but I just enjoy using the airbrush, so that's what I'm doing. And then I want to have some of this rigging hanging down here, so I'm just coming back using my dagger brush and just a very light gray, and I can come now and add little ropes that are hanging down. Just a lot of interesting things that I think will just add interest to this ship. We want to make it almost like a ghost ship. It's just under the ocean. It's wrecked. It's been there for a long time. Okay, so now I'm going to start blocking in my great white shark. So this will be the primary feature of the painting. And for those of you who have viewed some of my work in the past, when I'm working these dark paintings, I like to block everything in with a black gesso. And I like the gesso because obviously gesso is just a primer, so it creates a great base to add color on top of. Plus, I like to keep my colors pretty transparent as I start to layer, and that allows a lot of that dark gesso to show through. So as you can see here now, I'm just adding a little bit of that cobalt teal mixed with a little bit of midnight black to get this dark teal color, and even using a little bit of some blue in this as well. And so, but I'm not putting a lot of paint on the brush, and I'm allowing for, once again, allowing for a lot of that gesso to sort of show through. I think it adds some interesting levels of texture, and still kind of stays true to that theme of keeping it really dark and murky. And then coming back here now, I'm just kind of lightening my blue here. I want to have a little bit more of that highlight here, so I'll just get this blocked in real quick, and where I need to have those highlights and where I want to sort of settle on the shadows and get that all sort of established, and then kind of start to work from there. But it's just a process of just layering, and I'm doing a lot of, of course, dry brush blending, and where the paint is still wet, I can blend that way. But since I'm using acrylic paint, and acrylic paint does dry pretty quickly, I just need to work pretty fast. Now I've explained this before, but I use Golden Open acrylic paints that are really designed for outdoor use, but they have a retardant built in that prevents them from drying quite as fast as heavy body paints. So I do have a little bit more convenience on some blending, not an enormous amount, but just a little bit more, and that kind of helps. Okay, so now I've mixed together just a blue-gray, because this is going to be sort of that whitish underbelly that we see on these great white sharks. And so I'm using a Payne's gray with a little bit of ultramarine blue, and a little bit of titanium white, and that'll create that nice bluish gray color. And I can really kind of start to establish where I think those highlights are going to be, but really just kind of getting it all sort of settled and figured out and sort of mapped out, and then I can start to really begin to layer more of those colors. I'm still thinking about where that sun source is coming from, and come back now and add some more of that teal and titanium white where I want to have some of those highlights. You know, even though we are going to be more in the shadow region of this, we're still going to have some subtle highlights and some reflected light that's kind of filtering into the shadow of the underbelly of this shark, and will help to create some form and a little bit of depth. So I can just kind of figure out where I want my teeth now, and then really just start to bring in more of this teal color, and using that dry brush blending technique, which again, because it dries so fast, I just have to put a little paint on the brush, and I more or less just start to move the brush on top of the surface, and it naturally starts to pick up onto the fibers of the canvas and will start to thin out on the brush, and then I can just kind of keep working it, and that helps to smooth it out and helps to create some softness and some transition. And that's really kind of what you have to do, which is, you know, different from oil paints when it comes to these acrylics. So now we're going to have some of the reflection from the waves sort of coming down on top of our shark here. I just thought this was kind of an interesting touch that does provide a little bit of interest, and kind of insinuates that we're not in the deep sea, but, you know, we still have this shipwreck. You know, maybe we're just couple miles out from shore, and so the shark is somewhat close to the surface, enough to get a little bit of reflection there. The reason I say that's because my wife pointed that out. You know, why do you have the reflections of the waves on a shark in the deep sea? And I explained that it wasn't supposed to be the deep sea. They do have shipwrecks that are closer to land, and so they're more in the shallow regions of the ocean. And so I figured, hey, that same confusion might come through with some of the viewers. I might as well explain that too. And if that doesn't work for you, well, hey, it works for me. So, and I just wanted to add that. I thought it was pretty cool. So now I'm just kind of going and refining, darkening some areas. I really wanted to get like a pure black on these flippers here, and really help to cause this to stand out, since it's right in front of that little ship in the back, and I wanted to really show some depth here, and a little bit of my value system. And so that'll help to really cause our shark friend to sort of pop out almost 3D like. And as I start to add, you know, more of the silver lining, and some more highlights, I think that'll help to become a little bit more evident as well. So now I'm just kind of going in and doing some fine detail. It's a little bit more refining, and just really trying to square off some of the edges now, and help this guy to really kind of pop out. So yeah, that's kind of how I put my little shark together. But, you know, he was the most important feature of this painting. So just taking the time, and the question I've had before is, do you have to start with a black gesso base? And the answer absolutely is no, you do not. There's a lot of roads that lead to Rome, and this is just a method I prefer to use. And because I really wanted to establish my darks, being a dark painting, I just like to do it this way. And I really like having that gesso foundation as kind of my primer. So I think it really uptakes the color well. Okay, so we can continue to start working on the seabed floor now, and I'm just using more of that cobalt turquoise and that teal green, keeping it grayed out, keeping it desaturated with a little bit more of my burnt umber. It is a really basic palette. You know, I don't have a lot of colors that I'm working with here. Just a lot of the the turquoises and the teals and some of the blues and black and a little bit of the titanium white, and that's really about everything, including the burnt umber. So now I can come back and start working on these foreground cliffs, and I'm just stippling on color. I've just got a darker version of our turquoise, and I'm using my tree and texture brush, which I've talked about this brush. I use it a lot. It's a great brush from Rosemary and Company, and got lots of prickly bristles on the head, and I can just dab on and create little stippling effects. And I just wanted to have this kind of appear as if it were just really jagged rocks, maybe algae and mosses and other growths that happen at the bottom of the ocean are kind of forming on the rocks, and that's what I kind of wanted to give the impression of. So just doing nothing more than really just stippling on color. And then I'll come back with my small filbert brush, and I'll start to add in a little bit more of detail, little kind of square off and round off edges and smooth things up, and just create kind of little different brush strokes, and we can get a little bit more variety. I didn't just want to have stippling brush strokes. I wanted to create a lot of variety, so I'm just kind of swiping little check marks and little comma strokes, and just kind of going all over the place here. So kind of work that out. I'm thinking a lot about where I want the highlights to come in, using some of the lighter variations of my teal and turquoise. And then here in a few moments, you'll see me come back. I'll use some blue. I'm actually trying to remember which blue I used. It wasn't ultramarine. It was another one of my blues. I've got several different blues going on here, but it may be a cobalt blue if I remember right. But I'll come back and do a glaze. I'll just do a gentle kind of wash, a glaze over this. And here I am now kind of doing that glaze with that blue. I just wanted to get a little darker, a little cooler. And while it's wet and in the light, it's a little hard to see, but as it dries out, it'll dry out a little more evenly. But just wanted to bring that in, get a little bit of more variety in color and darkness, and I just wanted to keep it pretty cool since it's more into the shadow area here. And then I come back and I can kind of stipple on other little odds and ends. So again, just taking that same approach, I'm going to work on these barrels now. So come in with my gesso, and then bring in those same kind of basic colors, and really just try to blend them together, working fast while it's still wet. And I can kind of get those transitions going here. But now I'm just figuring out, how to create this barrel object that's going to have some dimension here. And I can draw on some of my lines. This is going to be an old wooden barrel, and so that'll be a nice little guide for me. And then I can bring in some black and start to outline these planks or these boards that form the barrel. And then we have the little band of metal that's kind of holding it all together. So just the basic barrel here. And just wanted to get a couple of these. I wanted to use these sort of as an eye stopper. Honestly, I wanted to sort of encase the painting, and I often do this. I'm kind of thinking about composition now, and what's going to look appealing and what's going to sort of, again, lead the viewer's eye. And I think by having these eye stoppers, the cliffs in the back can also be eye stoppers, but I wanted to have these in the foreground. And I just thought it'd be kind of a fun little thing. I'm calling this painting Davy Jones' Locker, which for those individuals that have watched Pirates of the Caribbean, that's just kind of a term they use for the final resting place at the bottom of the ocean of pirates when they go down with their ship. So we have our gunpowder. This will be the rum barrel. So I'm being stereotypical here and saying that pirates like their rum. And of course they have their gunpowder because they are going to be in battle from time to time with their cannons and with their guns. So that's kind of what I thought I'd do to kind of go with the theme of the painting here. And then I'm just using, again, that Payne's gray when I write out the letters here. And, since it's sort of facing away from the light, it'll be a little darker. And so that was kind of the idea there. Continue to work on this like little sandy area. Now I wanted to get them really seated well into the sand, so they're kind of stuck in the sand a little bit. And that'll help to kind of establish a good foundation for those. Thought it'd be a nice touch to bring in a little skull here, so going to go through the same process, bring in the black, and then start to slowly build up my color. And I brought in more of an off-white, grayish, color that I've sort of mixed together here. And I'm using buff titanium, which is a great color. It's just an off-white color, almost tan, but it's a transparent color, so I can bring that in with a little bit of turquoise and cobalt blue, and I can kind of get this figured out here, and coming back with some glazes here just to get the shadow. So I'm using my my bone black, which is a great transparent black, and I can bring in those shadows, and then I can start to layer on more color, just subtle highlights of that buff titanium. So, and just thought that would be kind of a fun little thing to throw in here, make it a little spookier, and just add a little bit of interest to the painting. I'm getting ready for a show. I live here in Florida, so we have a art festival coming up down by New Smyrna Beach, and I just wanted to get some sort of oceany, nautical-y sort of paintings. I think a lot of the folks that'll be coming around the booths would probably, from the area, would probably appreciate that. So I wanted to get some of these ocean paintings as part of my inventory. So I appreciate everyone tuning in. This is coming to a close pretty soon, but I appreciate everybody tuning in, and please subscribe if you've not done so. I'm going to get this little sword in now, and but please tune in again, and thanks so much. Bye bye.